What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Ghost of Yotei sales yet again. We finally got our first piece of legitimate info. Last time it was really, I believe, talking about Europe and talking about physical games. Now this one is actually opening it up a little. It's still European charts, but now we have a comparison to Ghost of Tsushima, which I think is massive, and I think you can actually take an okay amount from that. And it's also no longer physical. It's physical and digital, which really opens it up, right? Because again, I think you had a lot of just people, I think, purposely trying to make misinformation online, to be honest with you, saying, oh, it's down however much, 40%, whatever that number was, when in reality, it's like, well, it's been 5 years, and every single year, more and more people drop physical for digital. Now, that's not a great thing. I do not support that myself, but it is what it is, and that's just the facts of that. So when any game sells less than the game before it 5-6 years ago physically, to me, that means absolutely nothing, because simply, again, people are not buying it at the same pace. So, of course, the number is going to drop. It's just less people are doing it overall. Doesn't mean the overall game, right? So, from Christopher Dring, who's kind of the expert at this field here, Ghost of Yotei debuts at number 2 on the charts with opening sales in line with its predecessor, 2020's PS4 hit, Ghost of Tsushima, digital and physical. Ghost of Tsushima was a surprise hit for Sony back in 2020, which launched during the lockdown, which drove record numbers for video game sales. It's the biggest first-party PlayStation launch since Spider-Man 2 in October of 2023. It narrowly missed out on the number 1 game, which was EA Sports FC 26, holding on for a third week at the top. The football game Standard Edition had only launched the week before, and sales are down 62% week on week. Now, what I'll say specifically on that part, I think that it really almost contradicts, or at least to me, maybe just evens out. Because if you remember originally, when it was just the physical things, I think the physical Ghost of Yotei actually kept up with or beat that EA Sports game. I forget exactly what happened there, but now this one gets a whole lot more messy. So it turns out it lost, when you include digital. But that is not shocking, again, because I think most people are going to buy that game digitally as well. When it comes to the sports games, Madden, I think, has kind of slipped a little bit, even from financials. But when it comes to soccer, FIFA, formerly FIFA, right? That is, I think it's normally a top 3, top 4 selling game literally every single year, along with COD and then, a couple other games. So Ghost, relatively close to it. I mean, it's narrowly missed. So that's not like it sold a million less. It might have sold a couple 10 or 100,000 less to get pretty darn close. But the biggest thing, of course, to take from it, right, is that, at least to me, opening sales in line with its predecessor, 2020's PS4 hit Ghost of Tsushima. Now, without knowing the exact number, and of course, there's always that one extra thing that we never get, right? This is more than what we got last time, but this is still not as much as I would like to see. I would like complete transparency, right? Let me see literally how many copies it sold. But honestly, companies are, I think Nintendo, that he says later on, Nintendo doesn't even tell anybody the digital sales data. They only do physical. So that number one, that's totally messed up, because Nintendo also probably sells a good amount. They probably sell the most physical out of the 3, right? But they also sell, I imagine, easily a 50-50 split, if not far more, on digital. So their sales must always be skewed, if they don't give that data. Whatever. Bottom line is, it really seems like all these companies are quite protective of the numbers, whether it's games doing good or bad, and it doesn't really matter the company, right? They're all pretty secretive with it. But the comparison with Ghost of Tsushima, I believe, is the most important, because as many people are pointing out, right, what I think you have to do is you have to look at how, okay, well, if the sales are in line, right, same amount of people are buying Yotei, at least in Europe. Now, that's not the world, right? So that is important. But so in Europe, they're buying it at the same rate. Well, how many PS4s existed at the time that Ghost of Tsushima came out, right? Because if the sales are the same, but if it's right now a smaller user base, you could very easily argue that it's doing maybe perhaps better or stronger than Ghost of Tsushima. And turns out you might be right. So July 2020, approximately 110 million PS4s were sold. Now, the estimate right now on PS5s is 80.3. So you are looking at 30 million more PS4. And that makes sense, right? Because PS4, this was the end. This was literally, The Last was Part 2 in June, Ghost of Yotei in July, and then that following, or like literally, 4 months later, November, that's when everything came out. The Miles of the World, and obviously the PS5 came out. So this was really the swan song. It was the end. But beyond all those like nice words, it had 30 million more consoles that were distributed, which quite literally meant you had 30 million more people to play around with that had the opportunity to buy Ghost of Tsushima that do not have the opportunity for whatever reason it might be, right? But they do not have the opportunity right now to buy Ghost of Yotei. So that to me is the biggest. And even if you don't want to argue that it's improved, I mean, I think statistically that means it would be doing better because you open the door to 30 million more PS5s. Do you get any more sales off of them? That's the question. And I mean, to be fair, you don't know for sure because many PS5s, I'm sure, were sold to play Fortnite. Many PS5s were sold to play X or Y game, not Ghost of Yotei. So, I do understand the different arguments, but, if you open it up to 30 million more PS5s, do you get 300,000 more sales? Do you get 500,000 more sales? Okay, if you do, then it's outselling Ghost of Tsushima with the same user base. So it in that way, it would actually be doing better. So I don't really think it's grasping at straws or anything like that, by the way. I really look at this, again, as like, okay, this is the first official, like, this is good news. At least to me, it's good news. This is, and it's something that's actually substantial because, again, going based off physical, I don't think was really enough. But now it's the full picture. And the sad thing is, I think we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for that Circana. So Circana used to be NPD, I believe, right? Which was like, that's the US one. So the top 10 and all that jazz that you might have seen. IGN used to always post them, right? And they used to be more specific. Now they're, again, more secretive. But because Ghost released this month, I don't think you'd get it until middle or end of next month. So we might still have to wait another good, like literally to the day, another month or so to see where it lands. And that's only in the, I guess we'll be able to get more. We will be able to get more because we'll see it compared to all the other games of the entire year. We'll be able to see it compared to the big games, the other big games of October. But they also do have like the January through now list of, okay, well, which game literally is selling the best of the entire year. And there's still some games from early on in the year that are still high on that list. So if Ghost of Yotei comes in and is, say, a top 5 game, that means it outsold games that, say, came out February, March, April. It outsold those games in 1 month, right? So that's the figures. And even though we won't get the actual numbers, I guess, the actual figures, but we'll be able to see that chart. And then normally the people that run it, that Matt Piscatella, I think on Blue Sky, he normally goes a little bit more in depth. I'm sure we'll see more comparisons to Ghost of Tsushima, and we'll see. We'll see about the overall sales just in general. I mean, I've said it before. I've even said it to like friends. I will say, like, I'm not a huge fan of the secrecy. I think I said that in the last video for Ghost, like to go along with the side of people that are maybe a little bit more skeptical of this game. I will say I get it to the degree of like PlayStation and all of them. It's not just PlayStation. That's the thing. All of them are so secretive. And I don't think that's for the best. Like, we don't know even how, and I think I said it last time, Death Stranding 2. Like, did that do pathetically bad or did it do incredibly well? Social media-wise, you'd think it would do really well because of all the stuff that I saw on it, but that means nothing, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day. So, and they just don't say things anymore. I don't know, when a game maybe eventually reaches, like, I don't even know if we knew Ghost of Tsushima reached that 13 million mark until, like this year, maybe last year. Like, I feel like they hold off. Maybe they announced 5 million, maybe they announced 10 million. I know, like, Death Stranding, as we got closer to 2, with the help of PS Plus and Game Pass, by the way, because I believe it's on both of those, they said, like, it's reached over 20 million players, but that doesn't mean sales. But they like to throw big numbers at us, right? Like, when a game reaches such a large audience, then they'll say, hey, 25 million people played this game. And I'm not taking away these. Look, a lot of games do not get 25 million people that play them, but that doesn't mean sales. It could have done 6 million sales, and it could have done the rest, like 16 million or whatever, just in players, like on Game Pass or PlayStation. So that's again, like, it's a little secretive, it's a little manipulation, but I guess it comes down to the same thing of like, well, it's people playing the game, but it's not revenue necessarily. So we'll see how Ghost of Yotei does. It seems like it's doing right in line. That doesn't mean it's going to hit 13 million. I think I've said a couple times I feel it might do less, like as a whole. Maybe it reaches 7, 8, 9, 10 instead of 13, 14, 15 that Ghost of Tsushima will probably end up continuing to reach, which is still, by the way, for a game that is like a third of the budget of Spider-Man 2, a third of the budget of Halos and God of Wars and all these games, that's quite good to sell 10 million if it does it 10 million off of like 60 million budget. Insane, actually. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.